Tales from the Terran Republic. A more direct approach. As the day wound to an end, Patricia, in one of her sexiest outfits, walked into John's office. As she did so, she bit into a small capsule. The bitter contents coated the inside of her mouth as she swirled her tongue about in the oily liquid. John looked up at her and made that simply adorable face he made when he was angry. Having him was going to be so wonderful. "What do you want, Patricia?" John asked, leaning back in his chair. Oh God, she was so beautiful. "Oh, I just wanted to wish you a good evening," Patricia said in a warm voice as she glided over towards his desk. "And I wanted to try to clear the air a bit." "Uh-huh," John said dubiously as he just sat there. He didn't dare try to stand. It was all he could do not to walk over to her and... "No, seriously," Patricia said as she sat on his desk leaning forward. "I know we have our differences," she said, exhaling slowly and evenly. "But we need to work together." A cloud of tailored chemicals wrapped around John, triggering a massive release of hormones, particularly oxytocin. John flinched slightly at the strange, sweet scent. His head started to swim. What was happening? Patricia smiled. She was so pretty when she smiled. She toyed with the collar of her top. She was so close. He could just reach out and... "No," John swallowed and shook his head. "There is absolutely no reason for us to work against one another, John," Patricia said, leaning in even closer. "We both love the Republic in our own way." "Sure you do," John said, managing a little sarcasm. "But I do," Patricia said with such a beautiful smile. "I have my past, sure, but I believe that the Republic is the best chance for humanity's future, a future that we could shape together," she said as she exhaled again. I don't think we have the same vision for the future," John said, pushing his chair away from the desk. "You might be surprised," Patricia said, her beautiful eyes sparkling in the light. "Oh, they were so beautiful." "And here is another surprise for you, John," she said as she exhaled. "I want you." "Whoa, what? That was fantastic." "No, wait. Yeah, I know what happens." "Not like that, John. I actually want you. No games. I want you in my bed. I want you inside me." John couldn't even speak. He watched as she stood back up and walked over to him. He pushed his chair back until it hit the wall. Patricia leaned in with those gorgeous eyes, parted her moist, inviting lips and leaned in to kiss him. She caressed his hair gently and then guided his face up to meet hers. And kissed him. Electric arcs of pleasure coursed through John as she exhaled more of the fumes directly into his mouth, into his lungs. This was real. She actually wanted him. Maybe it could work. "No," John thought as he pushed her away. "Well, leave now." Patricia just smiled and straightened up. "Okay, John, I won't try to make you do something you don't want to do," she smiled. "You can't forgive a girl for trying. Not every day a man turns my head after all." She turned and walked seductively away. At the door she paused. "If you change your mind," she said with a beautiful, seductive smile, "you know where my room is." John just sat there, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the arms of his chair. Patricia walked away with a victorious smile. She delivered the venom. She imprinted herself. Now all she had to do was let the poison do its work. Tomorrow he would be hers. Brenda walked into her hotel room carrying a bunch of shopping bags. She tossed them on the bed and retrieved her suitcase. Inside, taking up most of the space, was a toolkit. She opened it and placed it on the desk. She then pulled out a pair of gloves and retrieved the first of her purchases, a high-quality RC camera grav drone. As the night turned into morning, she, using a tiny welding rig, expertly fused the final component into place. She held up a small cylinder with tiny fins. She pulled out a sheet of stickers and peeled off a classic yellow smiley face sticker and pressed it over its rounded nose. "Perfect," she said, breaking out into her goofy grin. Earlier that evening, John paced back and forth in his room. He was consumed with desire. There was nothing in the entire galaxy he wanted more than to go to Patricia's room and fall into her embrace. Nothing. He had to get out of there. She was too close. He took off his uniform. It wasn't doing a goddamn thing anymore. He threw on some street clothes and a jacket and walked towards the embassy exit. "Going for a walk, Ambassador?" the guard at the gate asked in surprise. "Just getting some air," John said as he walked out of the gate and down the street. He wandered aimlessly through the city, finally winding up in the dark, unlit streets of the Starport district. He had no idea where he was headed until he wound up at the noodle shop. It was still open. Maybe some food would help. If nothing else, the place had booze. Maybe he could get drunk enough that he couldn't do anything. The owner gave him a big smile as he sat down at one of the stools. Noodle, the XVLI said in his broken speech. Yeah, and beer, John replied. Wait, do you have whiskey? No, but have, the XVLI said as he pulled out a plain white bottle. Silly. Very good, he said as he poured out a clear liquid into a mostly clean glass. John slammed it down. Jesus, he thought. It tasted like kerosene. It was worse than the stuff he used to confiscate from the troops from time to time. He coughed. It was paint stripper, but damned if it didn't help. He felt a bit clearer. Keep them coming. The XVLI just grinned, baring his yellow fangs, and put the open bottle down next to him. You're a good man, John said gratefully. A good XVLI, I mean. The owner just grinned and went into the back. John poured himself another shot and slammed it down. Fuck, it was worse than the first one. Oh shit, I inhaled it. He started coughing as it burned his lungs. He poured another. A little while later, the owner took his goddamn time making those noodles. He was finally digging into his bowl when he heard a familiar voice behind him. Well, fancy meeting you here, Skippy giggled. You're out late. So are you, John replied. Yeah, I had this bullshit dinner I had to go to, Skippy said as she flopped down onto a stool next to him. Bunch of boring assholes and shit to eat. I had to get some real food, she giggled. Thanks, Vrekek the DD, she said as a bowl of noodles was set down in front of her. Hey, John shouted in mock annoyance. She got hers right away. What gives? The owner just shrugged and put an empty glass in front of Skippy, who promptly grabbed the white bottle and poured a shot. She slowly drank it and licked her lips. Ah, that's the good stuff. Are you fucking kidding me? John laughed, pouring himself another one. You humans just don't know good drink, Skippy giggled. You look like hell, John. What's up? Oh, fuck, I don't even know where to start, Skippy, John said, slamming down another shot. It's that bitch, Patricia. How did I know that human was involved? She'd do something. Yeah, me, almost Jesus. She's got into my head bad. All I can think about is her and how bad I want to fuck her. How sick is that? So why don't you? Skippy giggled. Board your drop pod and invade that whore. Maybe you can fuck some sense into her. I can't, John moaned, holding his head. I don't know how she does it, but every single man who has ever wound up in bed with her she owns. All of them. What? She cast some witchcraft bullshit on them? Skippy asked as she took a shot. Who knows? John replied, downing another shot. All I know is everyone, even Tak Nakamura, winds up with a collar around their neck. Well, fuck someone else. Get it out of your system. Go over to Porky Town and go nuts. Oh yeah, the Terran ambassador gets caught with a porky, John grumbled. Front page tomorrow and on my way back to the Republic the next day. Then Patricia is the ambassador and there's no stopping her. Someone from the embassy, then. They are all under me, John moaned. I can't bet a subordinate. One, that's just wrong, and two, against regulations. I'd be playing right into her hands. Skippy grabbed the bottle and turned it up for a second. Well, she said, looking over at him, what if you had a friend, someone that you trusted, who was willing to help? What do you mean? John fell silent as a furry leg brushed against him. Skippy just cocked a faceted eye at him. You can't be serious. Way to let a girl down easy, asshole. Skippy giggled. Look, John, I like you. I mean like you. You are cool and smart and funny as fuck, and you can stick it to the feds like nobody else. I think very highly of you as well, Skippy. Wow, such a romantic. No wonder Patricia is all over you, she giggled. No, I mean I really think you are pretty great as well, John replied. He couldn't believe he was actually considering it. I mean, would it even work? Yep, I checked, Skippy replied as she took another shot. I have an innie. You have an outie. Should work just fine. She leaned against him. So? It's just that you are one of the only friends I have over here, John said after a few seconds. I wouldn't want to lose that, to lose you. You mean a lot to me, Skippy. You won't lose me, and you mean a lot to me, too, Skippy said, looking into his eyes. John never really looked into her eyes. Did every facet have a pupil? John looked down and sighed. Look, you need someone, Skippy said, putting her arm around him. And I'm in the same boat. I can't be with anyone at the embassy, and I can't just hop around like I used to because I'm a counselor. I need this too, she said, leaning her head against him. The owner of the place just shook his head, grabbed the bottle, took a long drink, and then walked over to the back of the shop and unlocked a door. Vödfa said it lur diffril, he muttered and walked off. Come on, Skippy said quietly as she took John's hand and led him through the doorway. Inside was a metal-walled room with a large conference table. What? John asked. Don't worry about it, Skippy replied as she guided him towards another room piled with cushions. A while later, Skippy laid on John's chest, her breath coming out in ragged gasps. John looked down at her. Oh, holy shit, he gasped. Skippy grinned. Again? Yeah, it's going to take a little bit, but... He looked down. Never mind, he said happily and embraced her. The next morning, John sauntered into the embassy and passed Toby on his way to his office. I know that look, sir, Toby said, wiggling his eye stalks. I'm certain I don't know what you mean, Toby, John said as he patted Toby on the back and moonwalked to his office door. A few hours later, Patricia, wearing a sleek black wrap dress, glided through the embassy. It's been more than long enough, she thought to herself. Time to set the hook. She smiled. It was a shame. She had hoped to break down John using just her own will, but needs must. She walked past Toby without even acknowledging him and strode into John's office. John set down his coffee and looked up. Without saying a word, she locked his office door and, walking towards him, she loosened her dress, letting it fall to her feet, revealing her naked body. Completely nude, she confidently started to glide towards him. Damn, John said happily, and good morning to you too. Patricia just stood there in shock. I could get used to these morning meetings, John said with a grin. So, what can I do for my favorite Sith Lord? He did a little drum roll on his desk. Today! I normally would consider saying such things inappropriate, but considering the circumstances, may I say that you are one hot tamale. Those surgeons didn't miss a single spot, John grinned. Patricia mumbled something unintelligible and with a notable lack of grace ran to her dress, bent over to pick it up, hastily wrapped it around her and fled. John leaned back in his chair and let out a contented sigh. That, he thought, was better than anything, except Skippy. Patricia, in complete shock, walked stiffly through the embassy, clutching her dress to her. What happened? She couldn't believe it. She had never been refused and to be laughed at. This was humiliating. John was laughing at her. Laughing. She stumbled, her face red, to the sanctuary of her office. She was too hurt, confused, and humiliated to even be angry. All she wanted to do was crawl under her desk and die. Crimson was lounging near Dawn's desk, waiting for Patricia to do the deed and return with orders. John was done for. Once Patricia set the hook, there was nothing a human could do. Men like John were trained to withstand pain, withstand adversity, withstand all number of things. Nobody was truly prepared to withstand pleasure. John would be no different. She looked in shock as Patricia walked stiffly into view, several hours too soon. Crimson's eyes widened in delighted surprise as she took one look at Patricia, still clutching at her dress, stumbling, red-faced her way. He refused her. Crimson thought as she struggled to keep her expression even. She was refused. Hard. There was no mistaking it. He not only withstood her seduction, but he withstood the drugs. It was unbelievable. There was someone stronger than Patricia. Dawn stood up and gave Patricia a wolfish grin. So is John one of us now? Patricia lashed out, letting her dress partially fall open. Her hand stopped a millimeter away from Dawn's skull. Dawn staggered back, stunned. Patricia just stroked Dawn's hair briefly. Then she pulled her dress closed. I am not to be disturbed, Patricia yelled and slammed the door shut behind her. Around noon, Counselor Skippy walked into the embassy. She had spent too much of the morning preening. She felt stupid. She was an adult, an old one at that, and here she was all nervous like a cadet on bonfire night. She squared her shoulders and took a deep breath. She then made her way to Toby's desk. Good morning, Toby, she said as nonchalantly as she could. Is John free? Toby, his eye stalks still wiggling from the morning's drama, looked up. The eye stalks stopped wiggling. No, fucking way. Why, yes, I believe he is, Toby said successfully, keeping his voice even. He pressed the intercom. Ambassador, the XVLI counselor is here to see you. Oh, great. Yes, please let her in. Well, this is unexpected. Toby thought as he, holding his eye stalks ramrod straight, let Skippy in. Skippy walked nervously into John's office. Hi, she said quietly. Hi, yourself, John said as he stood and walked around his desk. Yeah, about last night, Skippy said nervously, twisting one of her feet. Yeah, last night was what? John wrapped his arms around her and gave her a tender kiss. Last night was perfect. It was, Skippy giggled. Oh yeah, John grinned. So I haven't lost you? Nope, Skippy said, booping his nose. So, John said with a smile, about time for lunch, up for some noodles? A few bowls of noodles sound pretty damn good, she giggled. A few bowls, John grinned. I'm not a kid anymore, you know.